of oil, gas, and mining in various places. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated safety guidelines put in place by the CDC, the state of Utah, and local health departments, the Utah Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining will conduct the meeting usually as a fully electronic format. Using a fully electronic format, as approved by Utah Governor Gary Herbert through Executive Order 2020-5 of the in-person public.
He's cutting out. He's cutting out.
Okay. Let me start over. Okay. And we'll go a little slower. Michelle, are you okay?
I'm okay. Yeah, you were cutting out there for a little bit.
Okay. Thank you. I'll start over and then we'll have a short discussion. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated safety guidelines put in place by the CDC, the state of Utah, and local health departments, the Utah Board and Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining will conduct this meeting using a fully electronic format. As approved by Utah Governor Gary Herbert through Executive Order 2020-5, this format will be used in place of the in-person public meetings that usually occur around the state. We are in the briefing session. The rules we had last time will still be in place, and that is if you want to speak, you raise your hand and be identified, and at that point you will own the microphone until you say the words "I'm done." And then voting will be by roll call vote. And other than that, we should be in pretty good circumstances. So thank you all. To have a determination of whether we have a quorum. So starting with the alphabetically, could you just sound off, please, on who's here?
Rich Borden is present.
Mike Brown is present.
Stephen Church is present.
Gordon Moon's present. Do we have Susan?
I'm here. Sorry, I had to unmute me.
Okay.
Chris Hansen is here.
So that looks like we have a full board. Thank you very much. We do have a quorum and we're ready to proceed. With that, then, we will turn the time over to Director Baza. Welcome and good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes, very clearly on my side.
Thank you very much. This is John Baza. I'm the Director for the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining. I'd like to welcome all the board members and all the participants to our virtual meeting. Again, this is the second time around for doing these electronic meetings. I think we had at least a relatively good success last month, and we're hoping to improve on that success and do a meeting that's sound and gets good work done for the state of Utah. So thank all the board members for doing this and for your participation this morning. We're going to start out before Bart Kettle gives an update on some of the progress we've made since the legislative audit. I just wanted to follow up real quick. Last month, you heard from John Rogers, and John gave a great presentation on the economics of the oil patch and the challenges that they were facing in the petroleum industry, both worldwide and locally in Utah. Just a quick update on that. You remember back in April, the price for WTI actually went negative for a day and then rebounded. It finished the month with, I think, above $20 a barrel, and now the WTI price in the nation is above $30 a barrel. However, it still creates some difficulties for local operators in Utah. We are receiving a deduction from the refineries in Utah because of the waxy crude. So the real question is, what will be the local operators' response to decreased pricing? There are still no rigs running in the state since last month. We know that the operators will likely cut back their capital expenditures for some time because of declining oil prices, but there's still a demand for waxy crude at the refineries, so there'll be some nominal level of production that still gets moved from the Uinta Basin to the Wasatch Front. We're starting to see the local demand for petroleum products slowly open up. I think there was a lot of travel over Memorial Day that indicated that, and even we're hearing on the news that local gas prices are starting to increase. So signs are looking up in terms of improving markets, but I think that we will still be faced with the lag of production and pricing and the effect it's going to have on Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining budgets. Will probably be okay through the end of the current fiscal year, which is just one more month. But the first quarter of next year will be very telling in terms of the revenue received for oil and gas conservation taxes. So with that in mind, we're likely going to have to go back to the legislature and ask for some support, both through the interim and then in the coming legislative session happening in January. So with that backdrop of economics, I would like to go ahead and turn some time over to Bart Kettle to give you some indications of what progress have been made in the oil and gas program since we last heard from him regarding audit activities and operational activities in oil and gas. So Bart, are you there and are you ready to present?
I am here and I'm ready to present.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
You're going to start sharing your presentation.
Okay, I'm going to do a screen share really quickly. If you could let me know when you're able to see my screen, that would help me out.
We can see it, Bart.
Okay, thank you. So Bart Kettle with the State of Utah Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining, acting as the Deputy Director of the Oil and Gas Program. One of the first things I want to cover is the critical function of the oil and gas program. And it's a question that I've received multiple times recently as Director Baza covered with industry and somewhat of a downturn. What is it that the oil and gas staff does when we're not permitting? And so I felt like it was important to cover two items, both the two extremes of industry activity, the exploration phase, and we're seeing a lot of activity in the downturn when companies are determining how to react to dropping commodity price. And so during the exploration phase, the division uses their knowledge and expertise to evaluate the proposals, i.e. permitting, to mitigate potential impacts for industry and the state into the future. And this could be 1, 2, 5, 10, 15 years down the road. The thought is we do the best we can to make the best decisions now to make things better for future generations. During a downturn, the division's critical role is we administer the here and now risks to the state and the industry. And those can come in many forms. They may come in an incident or a spill. They may come in orphan wells. And that's where, as a regulatory agency, the division really steps in, makes sure the state's resources are protected, make sure the industry's integrity is protected so that as things return in the future, there's a political and social environment that allows continued operation. And if there's one takeaway from this slide, I hope that it would be the oil and gas program and the division as a whole provides a valuable product to the industry that we regulate and to the state, regardless of the phase the industry's in. It's really critical to kind of keep that stable regulatory framework in place. So with that said, I want to talk about some of the things the oil and gas program has done in relations to the audit response. And as the board's probably noted, we've tried to come before the board on a regular basis and give you updates on things that we're doing so that we're keeping you apprised of what our situation is. And so we are improving. And what I would point out is the audit was released in November of 2019. The division staff worked really hard to come up with solutions to the challenges we faced through the winter months. But before the legislature did the best job we could to get the items we needed in that process with the support of the board. And then something called COVID-19 hit in March. And it really changed the way work is done across the whole US, actually, across more than the US, all economies. And it affected us some too, but the takeaway I would have is we didn't stall with COVID-19. We actually took a step forward. We made improvements. And I'll show you a couple slides that demonstrate that later in my presentation. So what have we done? We've improved compliance workflow. This includes resolving the outstanding compliance items that were lingering from the past, implementing a workflow process that will prevent that from happening in the future, implementing some technology items that will help us track it and prevent it. And also we're in the process of developing some new items that will continue to automate that process for us and make it more easy to track compliance. We've improved inspection prioritization. As we presented to the board in January, we deployed a program called inspection prioritization. That was an evidence-based model that helped us determine which routine inspections we would do first. I'm going to show you a little bit of data that we've received from that over the last 5 months here in just a moment. Financial management. We've taken steps to try and prioritize our regulatory responsibilities. As we presented to the board in April, we've brought on 5 new positions. Those positions have been very helpful for us. Have started to make a difference immediately. Performance tracking. We're starting to see a few trends on our program. We're getting a few indicators. We're working hard on metrics for our program moving forward. And we've implemented annual employee evaluations per administrative rule as it's called out in the audit. Bonding, as the board might recall, in February, the division came before the board and gave you a brief synopsis of our bonding situation. We've gone into informal rulemaking. We've got a task force working hard on bonding rules right now. We're looking forward to going out to stakeholders with some of our recommendations here in the near future. So I want to take just a second and talk about inspection prioritization before I show you some of the numbers from it. As you may recall, inspection prioritization is a spatial display shown by the graphic where users just can visually look at things and identify areas of needs, as well as a report that can be pulled for specific situations and manipulated by the end user. Inspection prioritization sorts wells statewide out into 3 priorities. Priority 1, the highest priority wells to visit, depicted by a red dot. Priority 2, the second highest priority wells, depicted by an orange dot. And priority 3, the lowest priority, depicted by a blue dot. I must note here that red doesn't mean bad. Red simply means that an inspection is due at that site. And this would be a well that we would try to visit as soon as we're able to do so. So some of the data that we've received over the last 5 months from inspection prioritization. As you can see, the graph depicts the number of priority 1 wells statewide over that period of time. We started out in February just under 650. By March, that level had risen to 800. We expected that based on our staffing level and based on the dates since last inspection for wells across the state. The surprising part for us was how we were able to flatten the curve of this. And we are starting to decline. And in fact, we're back to just under 650 wells at this point. And we didn't anticipate that. We projected that we would actually have somewhere around 1,000 priority 1 wells at this point. but we've been able to kind of get to those wells quickly. And the takeaway from that would be two parts. One, the 5 staff members that we've brought on starting in March have made a difference. It reflects in the number of priority well ones we have. The second is how staff are able to take this program and make real-time decisions on where to spend their time, and we're seeing the results depicted by the graph. So where do we go next? The oil and gas program has got a contract in place with the Groundwater Protection Council for multiple technology upgrades. Some of those upgrades are going to include data improvements. One of them will include a dashboard. And the way I'd like the board to look at a dashboard is it's the instrument panel the program will use to guide our direction down the long and winding road in the future. We will use the data coming back, similar to the chart I just showed you, to help us make day-to-day decisions as we go forward. So what are the possible challenges for us along the way? Well, obviously, we're facing some industry challenges right now, and the commodity prices have dropped dramatically recently, as Director Baza previously noted. With that becomes the funding challenges we're concerned about. The entire state government system and the state as a whole is worried about funding. We recognize there'll probably be some general fund cuts. The oil and gas program is going to be severely impacted by that, because not only will we face general fund cuts, but we'll face a conservation tax shortage. So that's an item that we're watching really closely. Another item that's a potential source of concern would be lack of support. To this point, we've had fantastic support. We appreciate the support the board has made sure they've given us through this process. We appreciate the support policymakers have given us. The department management has been behind us the whole way, and the division management has helped us greatly. We really appreciate that. We're going to do our best to keep providing updates to the board so they know our status, and so we can continue that open communication and that system of support. So at that point, Mr. Chairman, Director Baza, that concludes my presentation. Is there questions from the board? Chairman Gill, you're muted.
I'm muted on my program, my little device here.
We can hear you now, Chairman Gill.
Okay, let's try that again. Board members, any questions for Bart Kettle? Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Bart, any feedback from the auditors themselves?
No, Mr. Chairman, at this point, no feedback from the auditors themselves. We're expecting a follow-up audit, a review of the audit at the 1-year period of time, but that hasn't occurred yet.
Any feedback from legislators or their staff?
Limited outside of the general session, some interpersonal feedback in the general session as far as the direction we're going and items that policymakers are looking for.
Anything else that we should know about public support or public questions? I'm shown as being, I'm not shown as being live, am I?
The red's mute.
John Baza, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Yes, sir.
Okay, I've got, I just needed to check that that was on. And we're going to have a few technical issues as we continue down this road, and I appreciate that. And hope you will too as we go forward. Thank you then, Bart. We appreciate it. We're back to you, Mr. Baza, Director Baza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the presentation by Bart. He's been a great contributor to the progress that's being made in the oil and gas program, and want to acknowledge his help and support there. The next item on our agenda, we don't want to make you think that the oil and gas program is is dealing with all of the challenges or the improvements related to the COVID-19 pandemic. But the mining programs have stepped up to the plate too. And Dana Dean is going to give an update on our mining programs and their response to field procedures related to COVID-19. So Dana, are you there and are you ready to go? Dana, we're not hearing you.
Okay,
Dana,
sorry. Now can you hear me and see me?
I can hear you, yes, and we can see you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dana.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much. Yes, when the COVID-19 started and the governor sent out his executive order, we had all of our mining people go remote working. Everyone was working from home except for one person.
Dana, you may want to mention your name and your title.
Oh, sorry. Dana Dean, Associate or Deputy Director for the mining programs at the Utah Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining. And around March 16th, when the governor sent out his order and put the state into a red status, all of the mining people were deployed to working at home. We did have one person who doesn't have reliable broadband who continued to go into the Price Field office, but was taking precautions. And we have a couple of people who need to go into the office a couple of times a week to check mail and scan things. But other than that, everyone's been working from home. As far as getting permitting done, we have not lagged in anything. In fact, we got an emergency permit done for the Skyline mine in just over a week recently. And so I think that we've shown that we can do everything we need to from home. And that's a good thing. And it's mostly based on the fact that a lot of our files are available online and that we've been doing electronic permitting in the coal program for a number of years. And the minerals program has improved their electronic processes as well. As far as field work, when it was first read, we didn't want to put our people at risk or be risking the community. So during that time, I instructed my inspectors in the minerals and the coal program to only do inspections if we knew of a violation or if it was a site that we knew was already close to being in a violation or had some sort of an offsite impact opportunity or problems or something like that. And so we didn't go out and do routine inspections during that time. We did do inspections, and one big example of that is the Lisbon Valley mine. They, as you saw in the board meeting last month, they went into bankruptcy just about the time that the red status started. But we had our staff members head down there to inspect things. They've been going every week or every other week. They take separate vehicles. They've been camping, cooking on separate fires, and just taking all the precautions that they can, being careful at gas stations and things like that so that they're washing their hands and being careful as they're out and about in the public. Now that once the state went into and we had one AMR project in the Spore Mountains in Juab County that was underway at the time that we stopped for a couple of weeks because we didn't know what was happening and we didn't have guidance on health procedures. That project restarted once we had some guidance, and we required the contractor to tell us how they were keeping their employees safe. They had to have a safety plan, and our person from the Abandoned Mines program was also camping and taking all the precautions that he could as he was overseeing that project. Now that once the state went into orange, we went back to routine inspections, but we're still asking that company personnel that want to accompany our visits use their own vehicles, maintain social distance, wear masks, etc., so that we're keeping safe. And then in the AMR program, we recently did a pre-bid online. It was our first virtual pre-bid meeting. It was for a small maintenance project out in Tooele County called the Jacob City Project. It's a little bit easier project because it's, like I said, it's maintenance. So it's where someone has gone and cut one of our gates open or something like that. So those are easier to show and easier for the contractor to know what needs done. We think that was very successful, but we have 9 other projects that we hope to do this summer still that we may be doing video pre-bids with. And with bigger projects, we may have to adapt. We are including maps and pictures to all of the contractors. And we're encouraging them to go out and look at the sites before they bid so that they can get more information on their own. That would be part of the normal pre-bid process. We would all go out to the sites together, but we're encouraging them to go on their own so that we're not having groups. So the official pre-bids are being held via video for now until we hear more information. So we're prepared to do the 9 projects. It will all depend on whether or not there are maintenance or there are construction crews out there that are bidding on the projects that have enough personnel to put into those projects. So that's where we're at right now. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Hey, this is Chairman Gill. Any board members have any questions regarding this program?
Chairman Gill, Mike Brown.
Proceed.
Probably for Director Baza. Has anyone in your organization contracted COVID-19? John?
Yes, Mr. Brown. We have not had any cases of COVID-19 in the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining. It's my understanding in the Department of Natural Resources, very early on, there was one person who tested positive. They were somewhat asymptomatic, but they were quarantined for the 14-day period, and I don't think there was any further concerns from that. But that was in another division of natural resources. We have actually had one person in the oil and gas program who has been participating in the state's contact tracing procedures, and we volunteered that employee early on to do that. And I have not had a progress report of how they've been doing, but I assume that that's all taking place effectively. So no, we've been fairly insulated and protected from contracting any of the virus. Thank you.
I think that's a testimony to the precautions and everything. Well done. Thank you. I'm done, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other board members have any questions? Seeing none, that's really good news. I have to tell you, in one of the companies I'm involved with, we had 30 positive tests in a meat processing plant, and most of those were top management. So that caused a real difficult period of time, shutdowns, potentially losing all our employees. So well done, Mr. Baza. Seeing no other comments, we'll go now to the next agenda item, which is Mr.
Yeah.
Baza.
Under other items, there are 2 things I'd like to bring up with you. One is that we had put the Environmental Excellence Award presentations on hold during this period of coronavirus, just to make sure that everyone was taking care of business and that we didn't have to worry about people coming to Salt Lake for presentations. We're going to move ahead with virtual presentations during the June board meeting. So keep that on your calendars at the June board meeting, which is going to happen on the 24th of June. We're going to start out with the 2 presentations that the board asked for in terms of addressing nominations for the Environmental Excellence Awards. We understand that the plans to do a joint presentation ceremony with the UMA and the Utah Petroleum Association have been put on hold. That may happen yet in the fall, or they may just postpone it until do an event next year. But we'll hear more from them on that as the summer progresses. Any questions on that?
Board members, any questions on that? Seeing none, thank you.
The second item I would bring up to you, and I'm going to share my screen. One of the things that we took a hard look at as part of the coronavirus and the downturn in the petroleum industry was what types of regulatory functions could we allow the industry some flexibility to meet during this time of difficulty for them. So we did address certain items, and what I'd like to do is present my screen to you at this time on our website. And let me get to that. Oh, okay. Hopefully you can see my screen, which is the front page of the division's website. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. If you go to the oil and gas page, as I'm clicking on it with my cursor, we did a notice to operators on May 12th this month, and it was called Temporary Exceptions to General Oil and Gas Administrative Rules in Response to the COVID-19 Pandemic. And if you click on the button that says click here, as part of that, you'll see that a notice to oil and gas producers was issued, and it goes through several of the administrative rules. And the gist of this is, as you can see in the second paragraph, I, as the director of the division, hereby grant temporary exceptions to the following administrative rules. Now, none of these rules created an increased risk in terms of enforcement. We wanted to make sure that we were addressing the needs of the industry without sacrificing protection of human health and the environment. So the first rule that you'll see on there that we granted some leeway on is we extended the time for posting a bond with the division from the current 4 months or 120 days out to 6 months. And we felt that doing that was going to allow industry some time to work through financial situations and work with insurance companies to get bonding in place that they needed to have. And the same thing with the second item on there, where bonding coverage exists and there needs to be a change in the form and the amount, will also allow up to 6 months to establish that bond coverage. The third item on there is that the division is extending the period of time that approval of an APD is valid from 12 months to 24 months. That's 1 year to 2 years. And that's just going to give operators the time that they have to exercise their drilling obligations. If they need to get a new APD in, it'll give them that leeway of up to 2 years before they need to submit new paperwork to us. The next item on the list is reporting of undesirable events. We still require that that be reported to the division within 24 hours of discovery for major events, but we've kind of extended the language that currently talks about telephonic communication, and we feel that with the electronic services we have now, we can have that immediate notification done by email or text messaging, and that would constitute valid notification. We also extended the period of time for a complete written report from what is required now of 5 days all the way out to 15 days. And we did the same thing for minor undesirable events, that the written report can be submitted up to 15 days from the discovery. We created a note on page 2 that the shut-in and temporarily abandoned well still is in effect, but we did note that that rule already allows for an extended shut-in time beyond 12 consecutive months upon a showing of good cause to the division. And similarly, that the final plugging of a well can be extended beyond 5 years of inactivity based on that same good cause showing. So we did create some sunset provisions to the rules, and there are two of them that apply. The first sunset provision says that the exceptions will go away if the public health guidelines described by the governor's report go green for the areas of petroleum activity in the state, or when market conditions for Utah oil production, including the WTI benchmark price of U.S. oil, stabilizes at levels that existed in January 2020, prior to the initiation of the pandemic here in the United States. Or if we look at the economic indicators, that the economics causing the need for temporary exception have subsided. Now, that will sunset the exceptions that we're granting. Again, we're doing this not to risk any damage or injury to public health or the environment, but simply to allow the industry some flexibility in terms of complying with our rules. So I wanted to provide that information to you and indicate that that's something we've just done in the last month, and I'd be glad to answer any questions on that from the board.
Board members, any questions? Or statements or comments? Mr. Borden.
This is Rich. Mr. Baza, just a question. What's the price you are going to assume for the January pricing for these rules to sunset?
I think in January, we're still in the $50 to $60 range for WTI. But that's not the only indicator we'll use. That's one of the indicators. If it looks like pricing stabilizes and the industry starts commencing exploration and drilling activities again, we could certainly do that at the director's prerogative in order to look at all the economic indicators that existed.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich, anyone else would like to make a comment or have a question? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Baza. That seems to be very appropriate.
All right. Mr. Chairman, our calendar shows that we have a board meeting scheduled both in June and July. We anticipate that those will continue to be virtual meetings. We also have 2 minerals program informal conferences that now have been scheduled in June, and we'll do those as electronic meetings as well. I think the division is trying to achieve its purposes and its responsibilities without missing a step. We're working remotely where we can. We do have a handful of employees still coming into the office periodically, and we've got the field work occurring, as Bart and Dana have indicated, and we're not missing a beat on that. So hopefully we're meeting all the needs of state government and anything that the board would want us to do. We'll hear more reports today on the rulemaking activities we've been engaged in. But I just want to take the time to thank the good workers of the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining. It is their work and their effort and their dedication to service that allows the division to continue to be successful in its responsibilities. And I just want to give a shout out to the entire staff of the division. And after that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I had to say. So I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Director Baza. I think I'm speaking for the whole board when I say that how much we appreciate all that the staff has done to keep us informed, to move forward on the critical issues, and then to meet the needs of both the state and the industry. I have a question. Does anyone know when the legislation that passed this year dealing with forfeitures and bonding and oil and gas program, when will that be an effective new law?
I'm going to reach out to Natasha. I think she's on the call with us. If she could unmute her microphone and perhaps answer that question?
My recollection was it might be the end of May or something like that, but does anyone know the answer to that?
Yes, I have the answer for that. The bill comes into place on May 12th, so it's already already in place, and then we have 180 days to get the rulemaking in place, which is November 8th, I believe.
Okay, and so board members, just to remind you, that piece of legislation did a number of things, but the most critical was that it eliminated the need for the division and its attorneys to go to a district court to get compliance and forfeit bonds and things like that, and now allows that to be done in-house within our agency. Are there any other questions from board members on any other subjects or items? Then at this time, we normally have open the discussion from the public. I believe that Julianne, that we invited written comments from the public on matters within our jurisdiction. Is that the case?
That is correct.
Did we
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Did you receive anything?
We received no comments.
Okay. Well, with that then, I think we'll take a break until 10 a.m. this morning, and we'll commence our formal hearing at that time. Thank you for all that have joined us and for all the board members and staff that have put this thing together. We really appreciate you. Okay, we'll have an adjournment for here for a minute.